Hi Gemini, it's Nicole from Outer Inner Space, and in this video we're talking about your chart ruler. To me, your chart ruler, which is the ruler of your ascendant sign, is like a baseline frequency which when you understand the qualities and the nature of your chart ruler, you can tune into these ideas and come back to a baseline frequency, this tone, this like undercurrent of tone, which is really true to your authentic nature. And when you tune into that, you can kind of, vibrate at a rate which is true for you and isn't corrupted by kind of external stimuli or conditioning, which is important. I kind of see the chart ruler, and for you guys that's Mercury, it's like a main spirit guide in a sense. So having this conversation or having this thought pool open in times where you are feeling not yourself or influenced by, social conditioning, tuning into these ideas. And of course you will definitely extrapolate on what I say here. This is kind of just like a catalyst to spark some thought in your own mind. It can really like bring you back to your center and a place of equilibrium. And when we're in that place, we have better ideas, we have clearer thought, we're not confused by options, these kinds of things. Because your ascendant sets up all your houses in your natal chart, it kind of is like the lens through which you see the world. And while all your other placements like your Sun and Mercury and Venus have their own energy, their own frequency, the chart ruler is kind of, it's like I said, a baseline frequency. So, and that determines things like timing, when is a good time to execute, how quickly you should be operating, these kinds of things. And that's all very specific and authentic to you, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening on the outside world or noise coming in to you. It all starts inside. So first thing is, for you, it would be important to look to where Mercury is in your natal chart. And if you can, just spending a few minutes after you watch this video or whenever with the ideas that I share in this video and the placement and the sign of your Mercury, just like have these two ideas as like a point of meditation focus with a pad, or do voice memo of like thoughts, because as a Mercury ruled person it might come down to like wanting to speak it, it could be writing it, but just doing that with those two ideas, your chart ruler and your Mercury placement, and then seeing what comes, preparing notes like how you see here, it can really like bring some really cool ideas to the forefront of your mind. And from there you can really get to know yourself quite well, I find. So mutable air is the Gemini element, so to speak, being changeable in your mind and open to new ideas and going where the wind blows. It's kind of like looking at a map, and whatever section lights up on that map to you, like where you're drawn to, that's where you go on that day, and it's going to be different every day. That's mutable air, right? So the variety is absolutely essential. And with Gemini, it's like your immediate vicinity, that's third house energy. So it's like your daily habits, right? How you drive to work, which shops you go to, which cafes you go to, the energy that you encounter in these locations which are familiar. You have to understand that when you go into these places, you're entering into an energy field. And if you're going to places that are, you kind of get this hit, like this inkling every time you're about to go there that, oh, maybe this pattern is old for me now, I'm not getting anything new from this environment, which is a Gemini thing, is to have like constantly new and exciting and a range of stimuli, understanding that when you are aware of those little inklings and you do make the change mutable to the ideas or like the patterns, which is third house, then your whole world can open up, because you're getting this new information, which is Mercury, like your chart ruler. That's where your growth lies, that's where the magic happens, that's where the synchronicity happens. It's about the information and the vibration of the place. And Mercury is the fastest moving planet, so it's a very fast vibration, and I've got here beta waves, so there's low, mid and high beta, and this is all we'll talk about in the next slide. If you're going to places on the daily in patterns, routines that aren't quite exactly feeding you this new stuff, and you find yourself kind of getting bitter about it, you need to let the wind take you into a new place. Because with Mercury, it's about mental connection, the thought realm, the fourth dimension, right? It's like when you go into the same cafe, you're picking up on the thoughts of everyone, like it's in the air. This is the fourth dimension, right? And if the energy of that place is not in line with what you want to learn, what you want to have circulating in your own energy field, because this stuff is contagious, you're very, very, very receptive to the thoughts and the ideas of other people, or at least making links about what you perceive that to be. So if it's like a place which isn't really in alignment with you, if it's stale, if it's not new, that really is going to affect your vibration. So there's a need to make those changes, be mutable air, and let the wind take you somewhere else. I have here just look to your earth sign for grounding practices. The earth sign isn't something that's spoken about a lot, and it isn't Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. It's the opposite to your sun sign, and I have notes on this on my website if you want to have a look around. But for mutable air, where it's so changeable, where it's so dependent on thought and ideas and basic vibration that's in the air, like if you think about, I don't know, like 4G, 5G, 3G, whatever, the energetic atmosphere for Gemini, the places where you frequent, it's going to build your character, right? It's going to influence your character. It's a very absorbent, in a way, thing, because it's very unseen. Like, it's picking up on ideas of other people, whether you like it or not, and that's just something that we all deal with, not just Gemini Ascendants, but you know, it's like going into a room where you feel like someone's talking about you or something and you just feel completely uncomfortable. That's you picking up on the 4D, the thought realm. So when it is very thought-based, grounding practices are super important, and understanding your earth sign, which is the opposite to your sun sign by exact degrees, because, you know, we revolve around the sun. Or the sun revolves around us, however you want to see it. This can really bring you back down to a place where thought can be subdued. The neocortex, which we'll talk about in the next slide, it can be subdued so you can regulate those high beta waves, which high beta is stress and overthought and repetitive cycles and not really getting anywhere. It's just like a cyclic loop. You can bring that down to earth, essentially, and go more into alpha waves, which is more creative, it's more imaginative, it's more of a connection to divine inspiration and like all these other creative faculties which are more subconscious and less conscious, which is Mercury and Gemini. And that, in doing these practices, and I'm not saying like sit on the ground or all day long, it's just like these small moments can really change. It can really not change, change, but open up to a different way to process mentally, because when we're in high stress and beta waves all the time, we're basically a reactive person. Like, we're reacting to stimuli, we're not responding. And when we're reactive, it can get us caught up in a lot of wasted energy, because it's fast and it's draining. Like, mental energy, it takes a lot out of us, but there are all sorts of other energies. There's etheric energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy, you know, all these other ways to be, essentially. And so it's more about using more of your thought, but in a way that isn't so predictable, which is like Gemini's worst. You know, like you need the new stuff. So integrating brainwave variability is key for you guys, because as Mercury with the chart ruler, it's all about the mind, it's all about thought, it's all about ideas. And when we're operating in the logic predominantly, but we're not allowing the limbic brain, so our subconscious, to influence that, we're blocking off a huge amount of creative and like just quantum thought, because we're caught up so much in the 3D realm. And that can be a very third house thing, is the 3D realm. It's like what you do every day, where you go every day, the things you do in pattern form, that is kind of like on autopilot. And so doing practices like grounding and tuning into your more imaginative faculties, which come from the limbic brain, which come from the subconscious rather, or both. It's like lighting up all areas of the brain, whereas before it's just this like scattered, repetitive patterns of the same thing all the time. And what we need from you is your ideas, your communication, and you've got the good stuff being ruled by Mercury. Like Mercury is the fastest planet and it's the closest planet to Earth, so it's always transmitting thought, and it's transmitting thought from Uranus, which is the higher octave, but it gets filtered through through Mercury. And so if we aren't open to that quantum thought, to those new ideas, because we're too much in a state of stress, which is high beta, it really like, it shuts you down in a way, because you're here to be that messenger as a Mercury ruled person in whichever way is authentic to you. But in order to have the new ideas, that breakthrough stuff, like the ideas that no one's thought of, and the angles that no one's really used before, or like just the connectedness of two different ideas, like being open to the slower brainwaves, taking things down a notch, can, you know, give you the headspace, give you the energetic space to make these connections. And that comes from spending time making the daily practices to slow things down, to understand that when we're thinking just consciously, when we're thinking about the past, when we're thinking about already learned experiences, they're limited because that's already been done. But there's a whole future of things that haven't been done yet, and you have access to that. But it comes from tempering that high beta processing and coming back to like opening up basically to all the other parts of your mind which are there but are potentially dormant. It's like a muscle to work. So for example, like the occipital lobe, which is at the back of the mind, is basically like a projector, and that's like a visual, the visual center. Well, there are many, but like visual processing. And so when, say, you're in a quiet state in your own space, your own energy field, and you kind of breathe into that back part of your brain and notice the imagery, this slows your brainwaves down to alpha and maybe theta, which is like, you know, Venus, Neptune and Uranus waves. And then all these new thoughts, these new ideas come in, but it's like from a visual perspective, which aren't necessarily words, or they could be stories, but they're more complete in form because they're coming from, it's just like a quantum download basically. And stuff like dreams and stuff become enhanced, and messages come through your dreams when you tune into these other aspects of your brain, because you're not like fried in the frontal lobe, like your neocortex, from overuse of like constant stimuli, constant answering, constant messaging, constant tuning into like stuff like this video. But it's taking that information and then falling back and then seeing what else the mind can produce. You really can walk into some amazing different atmospheres that are unseen. And I know that Mercury loves logic, but logic is proven from, like, in order for a scientist to prove something, they need to have the phenomena appear, right? Or at least the idea of it. So it's kind of that kind of balancing. It's variability. So you have these visions, you have these new concepts present themselves through these slower brainwave moments. And then you apply the logic that you know, you apply the reasoning, and then something amazing comes from there. And that's where the new ideas come from. So for you guys doing stuff like, because it's going to be, well, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not easy for anyone to just to tune out the mental patterns, the constant chatter of the mind. Like, especially as a Mercury ruled person, that's tough stuff. So it's not about silencing it. It's about being more interactive with it. It's about having better conversations with yourself, essentially. For example, something that I do is that if I can't envision my future, or I can't envision the way a scenario can play out, I will remove myself from the situation and write a scene, like a fiction scene, and explore it from that different angle, like mutable airs, changeable ideas. And from there, and because that requires like a different kind of processing, like it's me at the keyboard letting my body do the typing, for example. This is like flow state, so that's the theta wave, and all this crazy stuff can come out that like I would have never been able to consciously think of. It's like this bigger force that comes through me. So doing things like visual note taking or writing scenes, doing mind mapping is a meditative practice. So it's about rethinking what we think meditation is. It could be you driving somewhere and singing to yourself, and then just like, where the hell did that come from? The vibration of moving the energy, like it can really bring about these, it's not even like that you would sing an idea, it's about moving this vibration through your expressive faculties. And by moving that vibration, by shifting the tone within you, you're creating space for new ideas to emerge, which might have been blocked down by too much thinking or other people's thoughts or things of this nature. And for you guys, it really is important to be able to do this brainwave variability stuff, because you are the sign of duality, right? Well, you're one of them anyway. And so there's this part, and then there's the opposite, and then there's this idea, but what if this and that and all this other stuff. And when we're in a place like that, it can be hard to find clarity and find proper direction, because we're considering so much information. And so for like a Mercury ruled person, it's about getting to know your mind and the multifaceted nature of it. So you can see duality as like your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, but it's about connecting the two and understanding that they actually work together, and they can work together in such a beautiful and harmonious way. But it's about understanding that it's not always going to be through, like you have to have the white space between the words for it to all make sense, right? So it's about giving yourself the time to decompress, to come out of those high beta waves into the alpha and theta waves, and because that is still your mind. And when you do that, when you are in a place where you're thinking differently, like in a more holistic way, understanding the duality, you get the whole perspective of it. And then that's when these quantum ideas come to you. That's where Uranus talks to Mercury, and then you've got it, like it's instant and it's clear, and you know, and then you go off and you use your logic and your reasoning and create this beautiful new idea, this new concept, this new way of communicating, which can really influence and affect people in this, and bring people together as well in this really special way. So that's what I have for you. If you want to grab these slides, you can do that down, there's a link below, and there's more to this on my website as well. So thanks, Gemini. I hope you found some use in this, and yeah, wishing you well. Bye.